But we don't know. It's talking. Gary.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Phil.
This is
Close to where we are, is that other?
yeah.
Is that the Chris? The other
That
one.
far, won't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
The I'd like to welcome everyone here. This is a journey that we've been developing for many years now. We've started the Franklin Historical Commission some years back, and we've been gathering documents and like pictures of what Franklin used to be. And the reason why that's so interesting to us is much of what you're going to see today is still there. There's some exceptions to it. And a lot of what we gather as far as pictures like this also gives us key hints to questions that we have today. I'm not sure if we have any in here. By the way, I've got like 70 slides, so I'm going to probably, briskly go through some of these things, but we're certainly going to have the opportunity to discuss and to review. But some of the most valuable pictures that we've got have been personal family pictures. Not so much because of the family piece of it, which is nice, but from what's in the background. What's in the background that has answered questions that we've had for a long time. My partner, John Sowden, the mayor of Franklin, and I purchased the High Street lot. It's when you went past the neighborhood house on your way to school. It was a lot to the right that was always fenced in. The reason why, because it was the home of the Hamburg Road mine. All right. But we've got a picture of the old luncheonette that was on Main Street. That's just a private house now. And it was nice seeing that picture, the old luncheonette. But in the background was where the head frame was for our mine.
Can't hear you, we go back to it.
Oh, sorry about that. And it answered a question for us to exactly where the mine was. I'm just talking about you, Mayor. So these things that we collect, it's not just for historical vanity, all right? It's because not only is it interesting, but it provides some answers. And the more you look at these, I was just telling these nice people here that when I was setting this up last night, I discovered something. And when we were just talking about that here, I discovered something else on this picture. So we'll get right to it. We're going to take just a look around town to buildings that we should all be familiar with and some that we're not. I am not going to focus on the zinc company because we've got 1,300 slides. Here we've got 70. I hope that we get to all of them. And we're going to have separate sessions for like the zinc company and for recreation, like the Franklin Pond, like the neighborhood house, like canteens, like and all this stuff. But we want to make sure that we can just get through. This is your introduction to Old Franklin. All right. So we're going to start on Main Street. You're looking at Main Street here. Okay. Some of you may be able to recognize the building that's second on the right.
Mhm.
All right. Maybe not so much this first building. The building that's second on the right is this building right across the road here. The younger of us remember it as Snyder's Laundromat.
Yep.
Some of us may still remember it as Snyder Hotel. All right. But this building in the front is Quinn's Hotel. And where that's located is the open parking lot right over here that the library uses and that the town uses for parking. Now, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
And so where did it go? It actually didn't last for that long. What happened was, for those that are around here, they know about the Nestor Street subsidence, all right? Well, that subsidence creeps back. You go into the back of the parking lot now and see how the parking lot dips off too. But it ended up where the zinc company blasted too close to the cafeteria in here.
Oh.
And what happened was they had to tear it down. because the subsidence was right underneath it, which was a real shame. And there was a bar in there. We're gonna see that. One thing nice is that the zinc company entrance was just out of frame to the left here. You can see the drainage ditches and everything like that, right? So if you lived up on South Street, you went past 8 bars like on your way home. Okay. Only issue that the zinc company ever had was with miners' wives. Because back in these days, the miners could start a tab at any one of these bars and the zinc company would pay it off. All right. And all the wives came down to the Time Office building where the Franklin Historical Society building is and protested. So that put an end to that because the zinc company didn't want to have anything to do with it. But if you lived up on South Street, you passed 8 bars on your way home, which made the trip shorter. So this is Quinn's Hotel. This is a better picture of it. These color postcards, when you see them, you have to remember that they were all hand colored. It's just amazing what they could do. And the significance of this one is not so much a better look at the hotel, a little bit more like sunshine on it. But you can see Snyder's Laundromat on the mid left edge, but there's a building between it there. That's not there now, but for those of you that park in that parking lot a lot, there's a little concrete berm that's in there. That's from that building there. How you doing?
Where's the buggy?
Yeah. This was the bar that was inside the Quinn Hotel. This is like the only picture I know of the interior of that building that only lasted a few years. That's a spittoon that's on the floor, the rail. If you see to the far right, it was Franklin's only African American, George Piggery. George Piggery lived out in Hardiston, walked North Church Road, worked up to Beatty Simmons, up at the top of the hill here. He was also known to go to Catholic Mass, walk into Catholic Mass every Sunday. He always sat in the vestibule. But there is, he was so well regarded that friends got together and bought him a headstone, and he's buried over in the Immaculate Cemetery on North Church Road. George Piggery. And that's the only picture we know that exists of George Piggery. Now, here's a closer look at Snyder House, which is the building right across the road here, which we remember as Snyder's Laundromat. You're going to have an assignment when you walk out of here. When you walk out of the front door, I want you to look up because you'll be able to see Snyder House still in the shingles over here now. All right. Now, you notice here too, there's a sign out front that said Alan Kindred. It took me a while, but I finally looked it up who it was. He was a lawyer that had an office up on the 2nd floor. He lived in McAfee and commuted into Franklin every day, which was a long ride, you know, back in those days. But these are the things that you discover. If you look at the side of Snyder House now, of the laundromat, you'll see the same window patterns. You can tell this is where the staircase is going up because the little window is cascaded up. And neat stuff. And this building looks exactly like it did as you see it in this. In like this picture here. You also notice too that these houses going up Main Street are all there still. All right, I think this one was like Eugene McInerney's house. Okay.
I have a question, Phil.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. I can barely hear you. Let me get my hands.
Can you hear me better?
Stand by 1 second.
That's okay. Uh-oh.
I got to turn you up because I can't hear you.
Oh, dear.
All right. Okay, try now.
Okay, is this better?
Yeah, a little bit better. Yep, go ahead.
So is this Snyder House any relation to the school nurse, Mrs. Snyder?
Yes, yes, it is. But by marriage, it's
Yeah.
her husband's grandfather.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
did, I figured, but I didn't know for sure.
yeah, related to Saco and everything
Um,
like that.
yeah, thank you.
Yep, you bet. All right. Now, this is an aerial view of that area that we're looking at here. And the reason why we did this is a sign of the times. I don't know how they colorized it, but they did. There's Quinn Hotel right in the parking lot, all right, where there's a parking lot now. There's the building next to it that we saw. There's Snyder House to the left, and you can really see the letters on Snyder House, real good there. I'll go back out here, all right? But the significance of this is look at the road behind here. That's Nestor Street. All right.
Oh,
That's
wow.
Nestor Street before the collapse. And it comes out to Parker Street here. Down at the museum at the bottom of the hill, we've got the street sign for Nestor Street and Parker Street. That's Barbara Babcock's house now, but you can see go up and you see this big building here? That's where the entrance to the zinc company is now because the zinc company wasn't down here yet. Palmer Shaft had not been built yet. That's the Sterling Hotel. That was owned by the same guy that eventually built Quinn's. This would be very shortly torn down to provide the entrance because you can see it's nothing but like farm fields here. There's no like zinc company buildings back in here. But this is Parker Street going up. You see in the distance there, the 6 smokestacks of Parker Shaft, which is where the fire department is today. All right. And if you drive up by the fire department at the end of their parking lot, next to the school parking lot there, you can see the old Parker Shaft. Okay. But that's where the center of business was. Okay. You can see all these wonderful houses coming down here. What you don't see is Meyer Rosen's Bakery yet. Okay. Because this is very early. Now, some of you, if you look real sharp, you see down in here, down the corner, that's a box car down the lower right-hand corner. That's the question is where did the railroad cross Main Street? And it came out between where Herzenberg's was, the company store, and where the Time Office building is, the museum now. There is a single track that came across to supply the company store, which at that time was where the neighborhood house is. So that's parked right outside the north end of the neighborhood house where they had a loading dock. That's very rare to see a railroad car there. All right. So you got Nestor Street, you got up there, you can see how the SAG's starting on High Street here. All right. And you got no Franklin Farms and you got no condos. It's Now here it is. This was just post-war because the parking lot's full with miners here. See that? Parking lot is full with miners, but the Quinn Hotel's gone. The Sterling Hotel's gone. You've got the Time Office building for the zinc company because they've moved their main operations to right behind here, to the Palmer Shaft. All right. But look up here in the upper left behind Snyder House, you can see Rosen's Bakery, right? Meyer Rosen's Long Bakery. And I'll bet there's people in here that used to take that shortcut path to walk to school. I'll bet we've got people on the call. Marty Platzner told me he used to walk from his place on Main Street and take the shortcut to get to school that way. But you also notice something else. There's no Nestor Street houses. Because now there's a big hole here. All right, now there's a big hole here, and you can see how there's a dip in Parker Street here. There's no more Parker Shaft facilities, but that whole block was taken out, and it wouldn't be too long until Meyer Rosen's Bakery fell to that too.
Damn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was his big. That was a very long.
Yeah, so that's all concrete over there.
Yeah.
The dirt, 2-3 feet of dirt was dumped on it. I don't know why.
He had quite an operation there. I never realized how like big an operation that he had. Now, I'll tell you, when that subsided and that fell in, he moved his operation to the little house adjacent to Weiss's here, adjacent to Weiss store. Okay, there's that little house that Roberto's used to live in. That was the new bakery. And then eventually his partners took it out to the highway across from Hal Kovach's garage and stuff like that.
Phil,
Yeah,
question, please.
go ahead.
When all those houses became inhabitable and had to be destroyed or removed or whatever, did the people who owned them get any kind of compensation from the zinc company?
The answer is, I don't know. I think so. I think so. The question was, when those houses fell, did the owners get any compensation from the zinc company? We have a memo from, one of the bosses. I forgot who. I think it was from Evans, who said that the cost of like moving the houses would be offset by the natural fill that the subsidence made to the lower levels. So that's how they looked at it. You know, this was before the day of major lawsuits or anything like that, but people lost their homes, and there's nice pictures. It was a beautiful tree shrouded neighborhood there too.
They moved a lot of those homes onto Main Street, back onto Parker Street.
Yeah, some of them. Yeah, not all of them, but some of them.
Oh, yeah, I know, there was a bunch more too.
So this is the building that we're in right now. This is the library building, which became the first firehouse. The Franklin Fire Department was incorporated in 1911. It was originally only hose carts, but they based themselves out of this building here, which was built for the firemen. This was the lineup for the 1957 county parade, which we hosted here, hence the buntings up. And it was only a 2-bay firehouse. We are behind those windows are in the office there, and we're right to the right here. All right. There's the
Sophisticated fire trucks.
well, mind you, that Franklin has always been, to this day, the only fire department in the whole county with 3 full-size pumpers. To this day, 3 full-size pumpers under the same roof. All right. And this was the first one. So you can see what it looked like when they first built it. It was just that first section. That's Big Jim Stevens, the chief. We're trying to find out who the mascot was here. But,
Yeah.
but this is the 1915 American LaFrance, the first motorized, the first drivable pumper in Sussex County.
Wow.
It still lives up at the firehouse and goes in every parade. It was just at the county parade in Hampton. All right, they bought that off of the showroom floor, and it was delivered to the Lackawanna station up there on Dixon Street. But you can tell that it was just a single bay before they expanded it. This was the bar inside. Can't have a firehouse without a bar.
That's great.
One of these guys is a Garrity. I think it's the guy holding up the bottle behind. I've tried to identify some of the other ones, and I've been told, but I can't remember. But you can tell they're in that farmost left bay. You can see the gear hanging up to the right and the left on the wall. The secret about that wall is you can't really tell from here, but it's been repaired. Because Doc Holsheiser drove the fire truck once, and he couldn't figure out where the brake versus the clutch was, and went right through the back wall. So when you go downstairs to the far end of the library, it's that back wall that was blown out, and that's what we're talking about back in that side. And here they are, and the reason why I put this in here is they're responding here. And look, some of the things that you discover, see the head frame back in the back here?
Yeah.
The head frame, and this was the mine safety building. Look how well dressed these firemen are.
That's great.
A pipe, he's got a pipe, they got fedoras on. I don't see one of them with gear on, but they didn't need it back then because they were all iron lungs. They were all Supermen, right? And it must be a real fire because they're rushing in, all right? And you should see how they had these trucks parked like a jigsaw puzzle back in the firehouse, but these great French doors here, I guess you call them. I don't even know what you call them, but good stuff. But look at how well dressed they are here, for crying out loud. And they're hanging on to everything like that. I got to tell you, you're not allowed to hang on to the fire trucks now. It's against the law, but we used to do it when I got in. You never seen so many people hanging on every square inch of our fire truck when we had a call to the nudist colony up in Stockholm.
That's funny.
And you got there and it wasn't worth the trip. Let me tell you what. But it is amazing how many people, OSHA would not have liked that at all. And the way that they got called out to calls is the big steam whistle for the zinc company had signals as to where the fire was. And people could get these little cards so they would know where the fire was. They were handed out by local bars or by, Snyder's had one. And the signals, so if it was one blow followed by 4 blows, it was Rutherford Avenue North, Siberia, and Hamburg Avenue. Of course, you'd have to be from here to know where Siberia is, but that's how they did things. This is a very collectible item, by the way. Now we're going up Main Street a little bit more. It's the part of Main Street that's the least documented for old pictures. You go up to the top of the hill and you've got Fitzjohn's and you've got Davenport's Pharmacy and you've got Saul Rosen's place, and then you had Platzner's radio store on the far left on the south end. And Adolf Platzner, I don't know whether or not Marty Platzner might be on here with us today. Yeah.
I just want to say that Dawn Jones has raised her hand. She wants to have a
Yeah.
question.
Can you turn the volume up on the people?
Let me see.
Do you need the light on, Ariel?
The volume is up all the way.
Yeah, you can barely hear them.
Apologize for that.
I don't know if there's a Zoom volume.
That is the highest it can go. Dawn Jones asked, the license plate on that fire truck looks to be from North Carolina.
Oh, I'm surprised that it even has a license on it. Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second, Dawn. We'll take a look at this here. Let's see what we can see. Or maybe it stands for no charge because it's a license that you didn't have to pay for, maybe.
We actually did that. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's an awfully big number for a fire truck. But mind you, this was the 15. This was the first motorized pumper in Sussex County.
I think it's Robert Moyes driving it.
That could very well be. So Platzer's was there, and a lot of the businesses had these little advertising things that they handed out. Snyder's had one of those fire siren cards. Platzer's gave out matches. They're very collectible. Fitzjohn's, you always got the yardstick, right? Davenport's Pharmacy always had some. Saul Rosen's had something too. I think it was matches. But you had, even when I was a kid, you had Platzner's, you had Saul Rosen's, you had Davenport's Pharmacy with that wonderful candy case. Then you had Fitzjohn's, which is where we bought all of our Christmas light replacements in there. And they had the wonderful machine in the back that like shook the paint. All right. And then you go to the next one, which is Hunter's 5 and Dime next to Riggio's there. And they had the Minor Bird that was in the back. Now here's up by, there's very few older pictures of this. This is when we had the fire at Kohler's right next door to Riggio's. Now, other than the obvious here, Riggio's was one of the first stores to have a lit sign like you see up there, the Pepsi sign. And you can't really tell, but this is where the stained glass is, which is still there above Riggio's.
Georgie Riggio saved somebody out of that building.
Well, there's a bunch of different versions.
That's
of
what I
that.
heard anyway.
Yeah, I heard that, Luke. This was the first structure fire for the new fire truck that wasn't a convertible like this was. That wasn't the
Wow.
Cincinnati cab. This is new number 2. All right. But
Can you
yet,
see what a convertible is?
well, this one here, you see how this fire truck doesn't have a roof over it?
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Blue Knot still moved to Rutherford Avenue after the
Right,
fire?
yeah, we're gonna get to, you see that was the Blue Knot store, which eventually went like to DeMario's, okay? But there was a mother and at least one child that was up on that second floor. There was a long staircase going up and they were brought out of a burning building. That's why next to Riggio's now, you see nothing but a parking lot and open their parking lot. I remember this fire, I was little. And look at the blue Franklin police car with the bubble gum on it. Now, so let's talk about neighborhoods. Since there wasn't much on the businesses going up Main Street, let's talk about neighborhoods. This is a little hard to figure out, but you're on the hill behind like where Sut Lamone lives. You're across the highway. All right. Route 23 is down here. It's not here. This is Rutherford Avenue. Okay. So this is where Main Street, which is almost brand new, comes down to Rutherford Avenue here. So Kickert's would go right in here, the car dealership. But this is when they're building all these bungalow houses. And this is Sterling Street when it was first getting built to the far right. All right. This is, and you can see the houses. There's no musty post ashes here. You can see the houses that go down Rutherford, like down towards Simpson, down towards Itchy's and all that.
So are the bungalow houses for the miners?
They are. One thing that the zinc company provided, no matter what ring of the ladder that you were, okay, whether you were in the mine or, they always provided you an opportunity to have a home. You may have only paid $11 rent on it monthly, but every worker had the opportunity to have a home. Zinc Company was very smart like that because it kept everybody together. It kept them working. It kept the social issues lower. All right. But this is a great moment in time because this is when they first started building Sterling Street. Yeah, I can.
And every third or fourth house was brick. And it was actually built as a fire block.
Right.
So they were all wood frame structure, and then probably the third or fourth house would be a brick one.
There's your house here.
Yep, that's actually, mine is.
This one?
That one.
Yeah, okay. And then you got down on Sterling Street. This is the house when you come in on Lehigh Street,
Yep.
Hudson Street. And these are the 3 two-family houses that are still there. You just go down this road and they're just sitting there, all right? But Route 23, you can see the vehicle on it is very archaic at this point, and there's no kickers. And Rutherford Avenue was the road to Hamburg, all right? Now remember that because the next picture is on Sterling Street. And this is the company nurse. And if you were sick for more than one day, you got a visit from the company nurse saying, "What's the matter with you?" And they would come to the house. Now, this is the house on Hudson, on the corner of Hudson and Sterling Street. That's where Linda Macy lived. This was my old house here. This was 42, so this was 40. But look at this wonderful vehicle that they had for that. And the family stand. But let me tell you what, the zinc company had they called it the social nurse, okay? You couldn't be sick for too long, all right? And this is Otto Berghofer's house and Young Homer's house now out there on the corner. This was Hudson Street. The street down below was called Lehigh. Lehigh and Hudson,
Yes.
like the railroad, all right? This was this next house in. The reason why I put this up here is an old picture of the first house I ever owned. This is 42 Sterling Street. When this was this was here, different families owned it, but when the first family bought it, it was built in 26, I think. It was one of these houses where the mattresses never got cold because the miner would wake up in the morning, go to work, and the night shift miner would come in and sleep. That's how they made do. They rented it out like that. The family two before me had 5 daughters. How the heck in this little house with 1 bathroom where you could live with 5 daughters was beyond me. But this was a wonderful little house. This was Kickert's down the road. Remember that I showed you that picture where Rutherford met up with like Main Street, and this wasn't there yet? This was a significant structural building to put up. It's an artwork in like concrete. And it was the LNW garage first before it became Kickert's. But look at these classic gravity gas tanks and this little oil stand here, right? Just neat stuff. And that's at the end of Main by Rutherford. Now here we have right in the same place, that building's right here to the right, out of frame to the right, but we've got the Franklin Band lined up. And it must be a Memorial Day parade because you got the trucks coming down Main Street. Remember I showed you that new number 2? This is old number 2. They called it the Canoe. It was our last ladder truck that we had, and there were 2 little channels that you walked up into the bay. But Gene, they moved the Blue Knot store down here. This was DeMario's. All of my friends growing up in school knew about DeMario's. I've walked almost every square foot of their Franklin and was never in DeMario's. And I'm at a loss for that because that was such a classic store. It's where you got your powdered candy and everything like that. Franklin Band, I see Jack Paddock. I see Williams, Judy Williams's father-in-law. I see Claude Paddock in the back. That's definitely a Ronca, like Alex there. And I'm sure many of you would recognize others, but the Franklin Band's been around for a long time. Now, this one is very faded, so I'm going to ask you to bear with me. This is labeled the road to Hamburg. Remember I told you just a little bit ago that Rutherford Avenue was the road to Hamburg. And you see a diamond railroad crossing guard here with a railroad crossing. So do you know where this is? Where is it, Gene? It's by Sterling Street, right. Hardin's would be to the right, all right? Green Street would be down here. This is the railroad that used to cross into Hardin's and bring Hardin's lumber and eventually went up behind John Wilton Street and crossed by the firehouse and went to B.D. Simmons. Right up. This was the Mine Hill Railroad. But before anything was like developed, they called these better homes when they went in here. All right. Now that farmhouse is there still. This is now a path. Mayor, I think they're thinking about leveraging that path at some point for access in there, right?
To the left.
Yeah, to the left. Yeah, the path to the left there. Because it's a good railroad bed. If you walk that railroad bed, and I don't know if it's their private property or not, but if you did, you find all the ore that the ore cars dropped off and probably sell them on eBay.
I know when we bought a house 2 in on the right here, for one of the little minor houses, and the railroad, we actually bought the railroad right.
Yeah. But this is the road to Hamburg, Rutherford Avenue, as it goes all the way down there. Green Street's not there yet, and none of the houses. This was the Mabie Farm, M-A-B-I-E.
Where you get the name of the street.
Mabie Street,
Yeah,
all right?
okay.
There you go, all right? All right. And I'm sorry that I'm going through. Now, here we are. You're on Mabie Street here, many years later. This is Melock's house on Mabie Street. Teresa Melock. And this, it was also the Hungarian neighborhood house.
Oh,
Okay, they had recreation, and this is the Hungarian boys band. It's run by Bendis, Bendes. I don't know if that's him or if that's him over here. But the Zinc Company sponsored them. Zinc Company always did things to keep their people happy. All right. And they participated in, this is the little house that's still here when you go up and you make a right. And it's like Milok's house and that's, do you know behind Kickers, there's the ramp that goes down into its back parking lot. That was the old road before Mabee Street was there. All right. So that's right behind here. So this building has a big backyard to it. Now you notice in the background on Rutherford Avenue, you see Musty Postash's barbershop. And you see somebody in white sitting on it. All right. That person in white is Charlie Postas, young Charlie Postas, who just passed away a couple of years back. A good Franklin boy sitting in front of the barbershop. You notice how the door is in the middle of the steps rather than like it is now coming up and you walk across and you go inside. It's my understanding, I hope I remembered this right, that Musty ran the barbershop in the front, and his wife ran the little soda shop that was in the back.
wow.
And it's always nice, these pictures too. Like I say, family pictures tell so many secrets. Like they used to have a center door going in, and look at the advertising here, you know? Now, since you were on the corner of Rutherford and Mabee, we're going to go up Mabee Street here, all right? This is Mabee Street looking across the way to Siberia. It was the gateway to Siberia. And here's that same railroad many years later crossing here because it went through Hardin's Lumber, dropped off lumber, whatever that had to do, and kept going this way behind John Wilton Street, crossed by Itchy's, behind the firehouse, and went to B.D. Simmons to deliver coal and also service the Trotter mine. All right. And this is a rare look at this. And here's the view going sideways from there. Look how steep the grade was here. All right. And now we're looking up into Siberia. Some of you may remember the path that came down the side. I don't think that path is there anymore. Not the last time that I looked.
The stop sign is round.
Yeah, it's not right around. Well, yeah, and there's no cars. You know, the Butler Street is the next road over, and it used to come out to the highway. But you see how steep it is? They had such a mudslide there once that across the highway and over the railroad tracks. Well, the Zinc Company wasn't going to have anything about that, so that's when they closed Butler Street to be at one time the rare street that had two dead ends. Nestor Street has like two dead ends to it too. Yeah. All right. But look at the grade that they had to come up with that. And here is a magical picture of when they first decided to build Siberia. All right. Route 23 is nothing more than a farm lane at this point for the Mabee farm. You can see the fence lines on it, right? There's not even an access road here developed, but this is the little hill coming up to where the knife sharpener was. Oh, my friend, what's his name? He's no longer with us. But look how all the houses aren't even improved on the outside, and they all look the same. All right. And you can see up here, some of you may remember the old water tower that was up there because there's no Franklin Farms, there's no High Point Circle. All right. This is when they first, this is a rare picture, and there's no Butler Street at all. And you can tell where we are because there's the incinerator on Moscow Street, or what would become Moscow Street. So you got a lot of nice references here, but this is a special, and this is on the Mabee farm. Hence it kept it to be Mabee Street.
This is the note. And the reason I brought this up, if you look, down around here, it says contracts has just been let to Leonard Construction for construction of homes. 24-story improved bungalows and 75 4-room standard bungalows at Franklin. All the 75 standard 4-room bungalows will be built on the Maybe farm. This was the initial movement to build Siberia. All right. Yep.
Where's Siberia? I'm a
Sure.
foreigner.
Yeah.
Where's Siberia?
Siberia is across the highway on Maybe Street and on Mitchell Avenue and on South Street.
Is it like up behind Advanced Auto Parts or?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's on the corner of Maybe Street. Yes. And the reason why they called it Siberia was that, let me just,
Thanks, that was my.
well,
next
sure.
question.
The reason why they called it Siberia was that there's a lot of Russians, there was a lot of Slovaks, there was a lot of Hungarians. If you grew up in this town, the same thing happened to Gene and I too. And we were born a couple of years after the zinc company closed, but we all grew up learning how to say greetings and curse in 5 different languages.
Wow.
Yet no one was considered a minority. Nobody was. And look, the zinc company provided homes. And you can see that they've built Butler Street now. Butler Street looks like it's been freshly cut off from the highway. The incinerator is right over here on like Moscow Street. All right. There's no Franklin Farm, so that's a dead end there now. Then you got South Street over here. It was not unusual for someone on South Street to stick a pig every Sunday and then share it with all of the neighbors there. I mean, it was but if you lived back in here, boy, you had the longest walk, to the zinc company. But you passed the most bars, like we were talking about earlier. All right. And that's Siberia. It's a classic Franklin location. Now we go to some of the personalities. Chief Irons. Chief Irons was a one-man band here. He kept an iron fist on this town because before he got here, it was a rough and tumble town. They found Chief Irons off of the Pennsylvania State Police ever having worked down in the Panama Canal Zone. Tough as nails. They brought him in for $80 a month, which was great pay back then, and a house, which was the house up by the school that Johnny Kovach lived, that Jill Kovach lived in. That was cheap. But he's here at what he was known best for, the Halloween parade. He loved the kids, all right? And driving the horse cart is none other but old Joe Colsar that used to own Colsar's Garage. And you always knew him by the signature hat, all right? So you can see that some of you kids may be in these, pictures here, all right? But that's Chief Irons. Now here's Chief in a very rare color depiction. And for people like me, he died a few months before I was born. So I never got to know him. So this gives me some time travel, all right, to see the Chief as he actually looked like. He was a big man. That's Father Steve back in the back, a young Father Steve. I don't know how you could be a priest with those looks, for crying out loud. And this is Bike Littell, all right? No, this was Alfred Littell. Yeah, Bike, all right? And they were on their way to the fields next to the professional building, which is where there used to be a baseball field. There used to be tennis courts back in the old days. Used to be a baseball field that they dedicated to Chief Irons. It didn't last long because he died right after this, and they moved the fields down to Munson Field by the pond. So, but this is a very rare depiction of the Chief. And the Chief did lots of things right here, like organize, like organize the civil defense teams. If the Russians ever came, they'd have to watch out for these guys with the sticks. I mean, I tell you what. All right. This was taken down at the shooting range, at the pistol range down there by the pond. I can pick out Musty Postash. I can pick out Jack Paddock. This looks familiar. I should know this face, but and there's Chief Irons there. And these guys took their job seriously. If you had to have lights out, you know, but boy, if the Russians came over, this would have been the front line right here. This is Chief Irons with his son Harvey Irons down at the shooting range. The shooting range, this is the one down by the pond. Franklin has the only active pistol range that's in the middle of a town in the state of New Jersey. This is all covered up now. But that's Chief Irons and his son Harvey. Johnny Heller, who just passed, was knee deep in the organization of this. The way that they got that shooting range down there, that's in an old quarry that provided flux for the iron mines. Chief Irons walked into the real estate office at New Jersey Steel and said, "You're going to sell us this property." And that's exactly what happened. As they go, said, "Sure, fine." This is Chief Irons. Like I said, he loved the kids. This is when he was, I'm sorry. This is right next door here where Highland Workshop was. It used to be a car dealership. What the heck? I'm sorry, I'm losing it here. But the car dealership used to have festivals every year. And this year they brought in Don Drysdale from the Brooklyn Dodgers. All right. And there's Chief Irons and the kids. And when we posted this up, and this is in like rough shape, the person who this kid is let me know who he was, and I can't remember now. I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don Drysdale was quite, you know, they bring Buddy Hackett up. They would, Vic Damone, for crying out loud, they would like bring up. And this is Chief Irons in front of the jail. Now, there's some discussion. Some say this is where the conventional wisdom is, this is where the ambulance building is now, all right? And you may see some hints behind it. I don't know whether that's the right, that could be right, because I see the old railroad bed coming down to the old iron mine there. There was also one very similar in Fireman's Park, in Schuster Park, just inside the gate where we've got the restrooms now. We built that on top of a foundation that they say used to be at least one other of the jails here, but that's Chief Irons. You did not want to end up in that jail for any number of reasons. But I'm pretty sure that they're right. John, you may be right. I think this is the rail bed coming down to serve by the pond. I never noticed that.
What's on the roof? It looks like birds, but it doesn't look like birds.
Yeah, lightning rods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. They got a lot of them, so they're covered. Or it might be religious crosses for those that got hung in. I don't know. I don't know whether they're covered or not. That's just pure rampant speculation. And of course, the Franklin School, the zinc company provided many things. They provided the police chief. They provided the schools. This is the early part of the school before they had fences around it. This is the side entrance over here on the left. These are the front entrances here. The thing that gets me about this is look at the top of the two stair towers. Those are copper domes. Copper. Now, where did they go? We asked down there, they looked in their attics. They know that wouldn't it be something to they're copper domes, which meant, you know, the zinc company always went out of the way. Okay. And always did things first class. But the school was not built for kids. The school was built as a vocational school to teach vocational skills that the zinc company would need in their business. So that's why you see nothing but adults here down in the shop. Probably for those of us that went to Franklin High School, it's the same shop that we had. All right. But it was called the Franklin Vocational School because the Franklin kids went to the school on Oak Street. And then for high school, went to Newton High School.
they took the train from the Lackawanna Station to Newton High School. All right, the one that went in front of the vocational school and went out that way. All right. But this vocational school also taught languages and everything too, and provided mothering classes for the young wives. And they always referred to them as the foreign employees, not my term, their term.
But there's the teacher, and so mind you that the zinc company built all this infrastructure. We're not even talking about the complex down here or the Parker shop or the people that they had to hire. They provided all this stuff too and still made money. And we'll explain why a little bit later. And this is the school. This is a more contemporary photo, but I always thought Franklin always had the best looking cheerleaders, best looking drill team, best looking flag bearers. And this is no exception. This has to be late 50s. That's an Engler on the upper left, has to be. Oh, there's names down on the bottom. Joyce Gunnerman, Elizabeth Melock. You know, boy, that is a Melock. Smith, Kathleen Taylor, up on the old football field. And you can see that there's still no Franklin Farms up there, and there's still no condos. All right. And everybody went to the football around here. Now, the zinc company also provided the hospital. That's the hospital up on the hill. Can you tell where this picture's taken from? All right. That's Route 23 right in front of you. That's the Franklin Pond. You're in front of where Plains Pharmacy was today. So ShopRite Liquors is to the right, is just out of to the right. Rockaway Sales just out to the right here. But mind you, it's coming down next to these. This is the back road that if you come off of Route 23, you go to back road behind the old Dairy Queen and those houses to the right, because the road went behind the Franklin Diner. So the Franklin Diner would be right here in front, all right? And that's Keslow's Bar. That's the Jeep Place garage that's still there. But up on the hill is Franklin Hospital, okay? All these houses are there still. That building's there still. The hospital is the only thing gone. All right. And you can see the big tower here. That's the big 150-foot tower that they picked up waste ore out of the open cut and dumped at the top of Taylor Road by where Cherokee's house was, right next to where Morris Herzenberg lived there. And it's still a collecting, spot, because the stuff they threw out was the stuff that turned out to be some of the most valuable stuff. That's the hospital. And that's the hospital water tower there. All right. But you can see how this road, Route 23, is to go behind, and the gas station is right here too. The reason why, you can see how dark it is here. It flooded there. All right. And that's why back in the old days, you'd see the floods come across by the Dairy Queen, like until Walmart came in and put those flood retention things in. That's why. And you can see the road by the pond. It hasn't been straightened out yet, but they'll take fill from the side of the hill. When you go down Franklin Ave, past the Franklin Diner, see, it's harder to see now, but when we were kids, you can see little clamshells that were taken out of the side of the hill. That's what they used to provide fill to straighten out Franklin Ave. This is a great and classic picture. Franklin Hospital, the zinc company. This was the first hospital in Sussex County before Newton. And the zinc company built it and always hired the chief surgeon from Harvard Medical School. Always. That's the chief surgeon's house that they built for him. My uncle was Dr. Schmidt. He married my Aunt Florence. And they lived in there. That's a clay tennis court that they provided for him. That was still there when I was there. I actually owned this house for about 3 months, but see, it's zinc company always went first class. What you can't see here it's behind the bushes, is Brick Rose right behind here. But this was the end entrance. The emergency room was the first thing in to the left. Waiting room was in to the right. And that's a better profile view of the hospital. And notice it says Franklin Furnace because it was before incorporation, which happened in 1913. Look at those awnings. And the main entrance was actually the side entrance that I don't think they ever had open when we were kids. We always had to come in through the end. And there's the Franklin Hospital ambulance. It still exists to this day. It's privately owned. It's in Franklin still. They want to keep it discreet so that people don't come, but that ambulance is, look at the beveled windows, like in the back. That's and the Zinc Company built the golf course. That's Babe Ruth. And I used to have all the names of all these people on there too. But that's Babe Ruth coming up the 6th fairway, coming up the hill. Right. Babe Ruth liked to come up here. He was friends with Russ Van Atta, who was a Yankee pitcher. And Russ Van Atta's claim to fame was in his very first game pitched for the Yankees as a rookie. He pitched a 9-inning shutout and went 4 for 4 batting.
Whoa.
All right. But he became friends with Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth liked to come up here because people left him alone, and he'd go golfing here. He'd go to McEwen's. He loved duck. He went hunting up here. He went fishing up here. And he loved walking golf course. It was up here several times. And was very kind to the, to the caddies, to all the kids that was like very kind all the time. This was when he was healthy still. His health deteriorated somewhat after that.
I can wear my
businesses. Meyer Rosen, the great Meyer Rosen in front of his bakery there, and that wonderful van. This was for some sort of a celebratory parade. All right. Because he's got a cake that looks like the Capitol up front. He says, this cast is a replica of the Capitol. Oh, that's interesting. I never read that before. And there's his address on their Nestor Street. He was probably paid for this advertising. National East. Somebody knows the name of his assistant here, but he was one of the partners that eventually took the bakery out to the highway, out across from. And there's Meyer Rosen. And look at that rye bread on the front. It looks like an alligator. He was known, I'm told, for his rye bread. And like kids would go in there and get donuts, and he was the go-to bakery here.
I know it's a telephone number under the address.
Oh yeah, telephone 3511.
When did they move that bakery?
That's a good question. It was probably late 40s. Well, I'm not sure. Martin Platzner, maybe, they closed it before. There's pictures of it here close to, but maybe the early 50s. Maybe the early 50s. And here it is. We don't know whether it's still open here or not, but there's nothing in the display cases. But he had a neon sign, which was very rare in Franklin and very modern for those days. Don't forget, we're talking late 40s, early 50s here. I don't see any cracks, but it looks like they may have been taking a picture for. And here it is. And look how long that building was. I had no idea that building was that long. And this is again for some sort of a celebration. It's Meyer and his wife. Somebody identified, but there's always a wedding cake that's in here. And the family that lived in the apartment here. And look, he sold gas too. What bakery this was a discovery for us. what bakery do you know that also sold gasoline? For crying out loud? Which means that tank's probably under there somewhere. You know, but this was the path that kids would come from Main Street and other places and go back this way to take to High Street and the school. Unfortunately, this was lost to subsidence, and here it is. This is his store here on the left. All right. But you can see how close that it's getting. And it was very sad because it just crept. It just crept. And you can see how beautiful a neighborhood this was down here. You know, I mean, just tree lined and covered, but this became unviable. And you can see how this house tried to keep it. They put pilings up, tried their best, tried their best. It just wasn't to be. And they still got decorations up in the windows. That's how fast this happened.
So the house, but everything else was okay.
No, everything from there down to Barton Street went in.
Okay.
Yeah, went in. This was just this was it. And Myers Building did too. So that fence line is just on the other side of Myers
Well,
Building.
there's still the concrete.
Yeah,
You know, we have
yeah.
it, but there's like the foundations. I still have questions. on
Yeah,
that.
I'll drive by there sometime, just to look at that.
And
through the
Lawrence
fence.
House
Yeah,
On Nestor Street to the left.
Webb's. If there's anything more iconic to Franklin Borough when we were kids growing up, it's Webby's newsstand. That's the little thing there. It's actually larger than what I remembered it being on the inside. And this was upper Main Street, and everything that you see except for Webb's, okay, is still there. Storefronts that come out to the sidewalks. All right. Franklin's lucky. All the infrastructure's there still, with few exceptions. There's the Franklin Theater back in the back. All right. And maybe you can tell by the car. This is when Gershman had his gas on Main Street there. You can see he had a loading garage, which is now walled over. But Mrs. Webb, she was the only place in town that you could get newspapers. The Newark Evening News made sure of that. And this is when she was young. I don't ever remember her being like young like this, right? She was always old, always old. But the candy case was there.
Oh, Henry.
You could get chunky bars. You could get paper dots, right? You could get paper
Yes.
candy and stuff like this. Oh my! And look at all the advertising. Any of this would be so collectible now. And there's Mrs. ran everything out of that little building, and any newspaper delivery was done by them.
Was
her
there just the
son-
one paper?
No, there's lots of papers in there. Yeah, she had like the New York papers too, Daily News. I
But
don't know.
was there any local newspapers?
Yeah, New Jersey Herald. Yeah.
Wow.
They came out 2 days a week.
Yeah, right. Thursdays and Sundays. Yeah. And this was right next to the theater. So you'd go in and you'd buy your 19-cent big bag of their popcorn, and they wouldn't yell at you for taking it in, you know, which was odd, which was very odd. Mrs. Webb. Now, this is a better picture of her place in color. That's her place there, and that's how I remember it. All right, you can see that garage doors now like cut off. This is the Memorial Day parade in May of 1954. That's my fire department marching up. That's George Labance, chief. All right, he was the first hunky that was allowed in the Franklin Fire Department, the first Hungarian. We call them colloquial hunkies, not. But look, this is one of those pictures that there's the head frame. And the ironic thing about this, the zinc company only had June, July, August, 4 more months left before everything changed. All right. The zinc company was going to close 4 months. And I truly believe that's my mother. And like not before I was even thought of. I truly believe that that's my mother. So
They didn't, when they were marching, they didn't know that they were marching.
The zinc company was very close to the vest about everything. One of my papers that I'm working on now, and I can grant access to the archives in Princeton. You know, Palmer Shaft, Palmer Stadium, it's all connected. Is to find out what it was like in this town post-war. How did the zinc company ease up? You know, how did they slow down? You know, so it's a very,
Well, I never paid for it.
what's that? No. This is Mars Bar. This is the hairdressers that used to be down by the Franklin Pond. All right. It was owned by Murata. It began as the Union Hotel. Why? Because it was next to Union Station, which was like the railroad station. And it was perfectly placed for anybody coming in on the railroad. All right. This is when it was owned by Murata, though, and it was a bar. And here's the inside, a very rare picture of inside Mars Bar. I think that's his wife. I'm not sure. That's him behind the bar. And again, these internal looks really like take you back. And the advertising that used to be around here. If you can find advertising or any kind of show booklets around town, the advertising is worth its weight in gold to answer questions too. Franklin Baker, Mayor Rosen.
Ida's, I know where Ida's was.
Oh, yeah, Ida's Beauty Shop. Platzner's is there right in there. Our friend Marty Platzner, Philco Radio.
Motors, Studebaker.
Oh yeah, well, we'll look at Platzner's, Philco radios, and ABC washers. Everything was a conglomerate.
What
And
was the terraplane cars?
what's that?
The terraplane cars, what were they?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe some of you old timers, I don't want to call you old timers, might know what they are. Studebaker, Hudson, and refrigerators. Refrigerators must have been in Ida's Beauty Shop. So advertising can really, I know that we're running a little bit long. Was there anything more competitive in this town than the soapbox derby? I gotta tell you, fathers and families schemed and kept everything under wraps and didn't show anybody until they got to the starting line. I can tell you for a fact that in the second place car there, the wheels are filled with split shot from the zinc company blacksmith shop to make it go faster, because that's my father-in-law, Carl Morris. And this is Ray Hyde's son that won. All right, he must have had better spit or a magnet in the front or something. They used the zinc company shop. They're almost all miners, you know, fathers in there. But they got 1,000 people out to watch this. You know, and they started up at the top by the theater here and straight down the hill. And you notice how the zinc company made sure the hill was paved specifically for this. Once you got down to the bottom, it was the segmented concrete, like you saw on High Street and everywhere else.
Not to interrupt you from going on, but I looked it up and it says the Terraplane was a car brand and model built by the Hudson Motor Car Company of Detroit between 1932 and 1938.
Wow. Wow. Didn't know that. Now, before the zinc company, there was the Franklin Iron Company down by the pond. You're looking across the pond from like the Franklin Diner side, but it's not, but it's like where the gas station is, where Jensen's gas station used to be. And looking straight across, this is where the little recreational football fields, softball diamond, that whole area was filled up with the Franklin Iron Company, which was the country's richest iron mine until the Mesabi Range opened up. And we got documentation on this. do you need- Oh, we got a long ways. Can we extend it somehow? All right, all right. While she's doing that, I'll just keep talking. So we've got documentation when the iron mine closed, it laid off 300 people, so they were very active. Even on the last days. But isn't it ironic that after they closed, the country's richest iron mine, just across the road was the world's richest zinc mine. That produced 22 million tons. For about years now, $6 billion in those years. Right? That's why they could afford to pay their so much.
Let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
because, okay, when it says Franklin Furnace, now you said that's before it became incorporated.
Right, and the reason why they call it Franklin Furnace
Yes.
was all the furnaces for the iron mines.
Oh,
And
okay.
there was also furnaces for the line furnaces too.
Thank you.
Right, this was thank you very much.
You should be good at that.
Thank you. Franklin was, I mean, this was the best place to have an iron mine because it was right next to water and right next to that quarry that the pistol range is in for flux. They use the white limestone for flux, which helps separate the iron. Now, interesting in this picture is the things that you find out. See this little hill here? Gene, you lived right in front of these trees.
Right behind the trees.
Well, I'm up the little hill, like by Jaime Keller. And they're up in there. So that's Jenkins Road now. There are no houses up there.
So that's the hill.
Woodland
where the
Road.
house is on?
Yeah, Woodland Road would be down here. And somewhere is the road that comes up to the Catholic cemetery, right across. House there.
Where that
Right
gentleman is buried.
from the Civil, right, yep.
He's in the cemetery at the end of Woodland Road?
Yeah, yes. Now, so this is when the iron mine was shutting down. This is early 1890s. I'm going to give you your bearings in 1 second. All right. We can start by saying this is the Wallkill River down by Franklin Ave. It's very wide. Why is it wide? Because the shape of the Wallkill River was delineated by the mineral dump. And that's what you see to the left there was the mineral dump, was the zinc mineral dump. All right. That's Cork Hill Road going up to the right. All right. That's Franklin Ave going out to the highway on the left. Where right here you see the old furnace crushed and coming down. That's where the monument is in Mitchell Park. The little water fountain monument that's down by the pond in Mitchell Park. It's over top. That was the deepest iron mine in the complex. They were all over the place. They went up gooseberry mines, which were up in front of your house there, behind your house and things like that. But you can see that it's becoming decrepit. But look at this. There's a little bridge down here. Why? This isn't the bridge by the Franklin Pond Falls. That's over here. But they brought water over where the beach is now because they needed water to flow through here. So that bridge is underneath everything still. All right. And look, my mineral friends, look at this. That's 20 foot tall mineral dump. Okay. They reprocess much of it. But can you imagine what the value of the minerals are in there for Franklin? See that, John? Isn't that something? And here's the ramp they used to come down to like go fishing and the reason why there's that big grassy area along the curve, the ambulance building would be off to the right here, is because there used to be a house there. All right. So interesting stuff, the stuff that you discover. This is the other Grand Hotel that was in Franklin. You had Quinn's, you had the Union Hotel. This was Littell's Hotel. Where you're looking at here is right on top of where they used to keep the gas bottles there. Now they got like a little office there. Phil Littell's house is just out of sight to the left, all right? And there's the water tower, Littell's water tower. And up in here, for some of you kids, is where Sliding Rock was. There was a rock with a natural trough in it that kids used to slide down all the time. They used to put holes like in there. It is, yeah.
It's on
Just
private
one moment,
property.
Mr. Crab. I just want to plug in the computer
Oh, sure.
to charge it.
Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
So slid down.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Hope you
We've-
can hear that.
We've turned the corner. So now this is what happened to Littell's Hotel, though. A terrible fire. Nobody was hurt. I don't see Watson Littell in here because he was by far the biggest guy. That he was huge, a huge human being. But for this fire, we had hose carts in Franklin. This was before 1915. So we had hose carts. So what they did was they called over to Newton and they put their horse-drawn Stanley steamer on a flat car and brought it by railroad to the railroad station that we were looking at, or that we're about to look at, to help fight the fire here. But that was the end of the Grand Littell Franklin House. That's what they called this, Franklin House.
Now, how long would it take to get that from Newton to here?
Probably some time. Yeah. It was old steam engines that used to bring it.
But you want to do everything you can.
Yeah,
to
by the
find it.
time that you call that in, you've given up on it. You're not gonna, plus with hose carts, there's nothing much you can do. It's just squirting on it. Now, this is an interesting picture. What you see in the distance is the remains of the old iron company. You see the Walkill River, but not much of a mineral dump here. So you know where this bridge is? This is the bridge by Littell's. This is the bridge when you come down the hill from the Catholic Church, all around the corner. This is the bridge that we from the county just fixed 10 years ago. And this stone arch bridge that you see here is still underneath the new modern bridge and is bearing the weight.
Wow.
But look at the donkeys, or donkeys or cows. There's a story about the donkeys that were used in the mine. The donkeys were used in the mine. They would bring them up every day. They would never leave them down there, let them go, and they'd find their way back to their corral, wherever that was. There's more than one miner and at least one fireman contemporary with my time there who rode his donkey to Itchy's Tavern, tied it to the rail. He came out and he was slosh, and his donkey took him home. This house is still there. That's Sylvia Chapman's house, and this house is still there too. No, but this bridge still carries the weight.
Wow.
That's the Y.
What's that?
Is that what they call the Y? That area?
No, the Y was off of the viaduct. That's where the Lackawanna Y was. That's how they turned their engines around because there was no turntable. Yeah. Lackawanna Y, that's what they call it. This is a very early picture, by the way. Oops, sorry. This Franklin Pond, this is a beautiful picture. Very early, but you can see that the iron company is now defunct, right? And it's just kind of rotting away. One of these houses, I believe it was this one, Gina, remember, became Spangenberg's house, right down by Munson Field. Yellow back then. Remember, he dressed up like Superman and jumped out of the window. Yeah. Oh, there's all these nuances, Franklin. But this was before there was swimming. You can see a longboat right here.
This is where the beach is.
Yes, this is where the beach would end up. And see, the road coming in next to the beach was the old railroad bed coming in to serve the iron mine. But look at, and these rocks are all there still, you know?
Wow.
During the iron mine days. On the side of the pond where they shoot the fireworks from, that little park where they shoot fireworks from, there used to be a row house there that they referred to as Cinder City. And a lot of the iron miners' families lived there. A lot of it wasn't the benevolent zinc company, wasn't the same as the Franklin Iron their company. And they referred to this as Bed Bug Alley. But families made do. The interesting thing here is look at what the wall is made out of. Atlas Powder Company. They're made out of explosive boxes that they just reused. All right. Always made do. Frankly, and here's a young family that's having one every year, looks like, and doing their best. And you can still see the foundation if you go down into that park where they shoot the fireworks off. If you go to the right, you'll see the rock foundation for this building. This was the railroad station that we talked about. It was shared by both the Lackawanna until 1930 something and the Susquehanna, which used it right up until, probably 62, 61, 62. You see how it's two different heights. That's because they both shared the same station. The taller one was built by the Lackawanna, the shorter one was built by the Susquehanna. All right. And it's the Newton one, Lackawanna, you could take it all the way, to Chicago, Scranton, if you wanted to. But this is where the Franklin kids would get on the train to go to Newton High School.
And where exactly was that?
This is when you're down by the police station and you make the right to go up the hill towards the golf course. This was just in about 30 yards in from that to the right, going up the hill, Maple Road. And this burned. However, the Franklin Fire Department saved the Franklin sign. It came from the other side. So we've got the station sign preserved. And it's in our museum. And this is a better look from the other side. There's McCann's house up on the hill. There's the Central Hotel that we looked at. Look at the size of the mineral dump over here. Mineral Friends. This was Teresa Melock's house before she made improvements. And this is which track is it on? This is a Susquehanna mixed train. So you got passengers on it, but you got mixed freight that's going to go up to Hanford, which is on the New York state line, and it connected to the Ontario and Western there. So this went out past the Gingerbread Castle, past Plastoid, through Sussex, behind Sussex, through the middle of Sussex, and then went up to there. A long way from where it began, let me tell you. But this is the Franklin Station sign that we saved. And look, there were 4 tracks up there, a big deal. And like I say, there's McCann's house up. There's the old school here, and what's now the Jewish synagogue, but back then was the Baptist church. That became the first Presbyterian, the first Presbyterian church, and before Presbyterian church moved out to Main Street. Yeah, that was it. It went from Baptist to Presbyterian, and now it's been the Jewish, but it's still there. And the foundation.
Is that Dr. Scott's old office?
What's that?
Isn't that where Dr. Scott's office used to be many, many years ago?
No, Dr. Scott's office was in his house, which is just behind this tree here. All right.
Okay.
Interesting that the doctors, Dr. Boyd, Dr. Scott, Dr. Daly, the fronts of their houses always had 2 doors. One the entrance for the family and one the entrance for the office, because every one of them had their office in their house. Now, we're getting there, folks. Sorry that this is going a little long. Franklin Theater. Zinc Company didn't build the Franklin Theater, but it was the reason why they would build a theater referred to as the best equipped theater
between here and between New York and Pittsburgh. And that's Dr. Scott's dentist office. However, it was a Sussex County Trust office back then. That's why when you got your teeth x-rayed in Dr. Scott's, it was in the old safe.
Yeah.
No, no. Yeah.
Where's the old post
And the
office from
front,
there?
and you can see that the front of the theater had a barber shop in it and had another office in it here before the overhanging marquee. So this is very early. Now, the projectionist would be up in here, right? There was, Ray Hyde told me once about the projectionist that had to bring his dog, and every time the dog had to go, he put him on a rope and lower him out to the bottom. That's absolute truth. Absolute truth. Now, this is the type of shows they put on it in the like best equipped theater. The Phyllis Club was named after Phyllis Trelaw, the nurse that treated but lost her life treating the typhoid epidemic here in Franklin. Typhoid occurred because Big Jim Stevens, that first fire chief I showed you, opened up the wrong valve and put hydrant water like into drinking water. And it was before so if you go in the back section of the Immaculate Cemetery on North Church Road, you'll see a bunch of 20-some-year-olds that all buried next to each other that died of typhoid during that time. But this is the type of like production they would put. And there is Franklin Theater's mighty Wurlitzer organ. In a separate document that I don't have here, we've got what every one of the stops were. Part of the stops were it had a gong, it had bells, and it had a fire siren. A fire siren stop so you could play. But this is when they used to, we don't know where it's at now. This was taken, I think, when Donnie Kovach owned this. But we've got a picture of it. And of course, they put out every week, the Franklin Theater, would send a mailer out with all of the things. Now, in later years, I remember this being in the New Jersey Herald, but they would send a mailer out to everybody locally with the stuff coming in. Barbara Stanwyck, Henry Fonda, Humphrey Bogart. And these are the days I remember when the movies changed. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, matinees. I would see all my Tarzan matinees back then.
And how much would it cost to get in?
A matinee was 50 cents, Gene, 75 cents.
Wow.
Something like that.
It might have even been less, I'm trying to think. 'cause
It might have been
50
less.
cents, 50 cents would give you food too. Like,
You know what?
candy
I-
or something with it.
I think you're right. I think every afternoon. I
And
mean,
toys?
Toys, yeah. Well, from Bayonne, when I lived in Bayonne, yeah, 25 cents to get into the theaters. And
we're getting down to it here. So thank you for your attention. This is the mighty New Jersey Zinc Company. This is right behind here, right behind where we're sitting now. Look at all that infrastructure. How they had the ability to build all this, all that trackage, to build a power plant that served power to the whole town, that if you paid your bill every month, you got December free. Hired the hundreds and hundreds of men on top of first building the complex up to the Parker Shaft, building the complex to the open cut, shipping 22 million tons of ore to Palmerton by train, and still made money. The sad thing here is that you can see this was taken by Itchy Novak flying in Kornheiser's biplane. By the way, Kornheiser's landing strip was in front of where ShopRite is now, right? Where the parking lot ShopRite is. But look at this. The north chimney is still putting out a little bit of smoke. Why? Because they kept the pumps running. This was the day after the mine closed. October 1st, 1954. They kept the pumps going because underneath the ore body was a big layer of iron. And they kept it and asked Bethlehem Steel, do you want the iron? And Bethlehem still thought about it and said, no, we don't. And that's when they turned everything off.
which was sad. The only thing left in this picture are the two chimneys and the change house here. And we're under pressure from current governing officials, not the mayor, but other governing officials that don't see the value in preserving something like this. So we got our fingers crossed.
Tell them to pack
What
salt.
do they want to do in his place?
500 units.
Residential.
Housing.
Yeah, residential. I'm sorry, go ahead. What'd you say?
I was being fresh. I said, tell them to pack salt.
I'm sorry, one more time. I can barely hear you.
Tell them to pack salt.
To pack salt. Yeah, got it. We will. We're going to tell them to pack salt. The developers. Got it. No cursing on.
I
You
didn't
can see-
swear.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Now you can see these two coal piles here, right? This is all the coal that was left, like after they closed. That coal is still there. All right. Some people have gotten it to take home because it was good blue coal, right? Pea coal too, some of it. Now, when I was a kid, like 69, 70, all these buildings with few exceptions were all up still. I could walk through everything and be the only one in that whole complex. And the catwalks were up. It was a sign of manhood. If you could go up there, I didn't have manhood back there. I wasn't going up there on a like bet. Our friend John the mayor, didn't you climb one of these chimneys, John?
Yes.
He's a better man than I'm not using my man. He is. Yeah.
Biplane.
Yeah, aerial. Yeah. So we're making every effort to try to preserve this last change house. But look at the infrastructure. I mean, it's just amazing that they had all this and all these collectible rocks everywhere and all these dumps everywhere. And they still made enough money to run this thing. It's just amazing. And built the whole Palmerton plant with all those hundreds of people, you know? And this is what it looked like from the viaduct. This is earlier, so it's in full swing here. All right. The last picture was taken from up here, looking back down. This was the junction. The reason why they called it the junction, because it was a junction between the Lehigh and Hudson River and the Susquehanna. All right. Look at all these rails going in. When I was a kid, they were all there still. You could play with the switches. You could do everything. It was wonderful. The powerhouse was there. You go up in the powerhouse, and under the powerhouse, you could go 2 levels below the ground. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And a lot of these tracks went inside buildings, so they were in the floor of the building. And up on top, we're actually right behind here, and that's where the library is. But there's the head frame. And here we're in full mode. Some of you who know cars may be able to detect what year this is, but I don't. Susquehanna Street, and when the ramp came down from the Ralph Walters took this picture. A great classic picture. Here's what Main Street looked like back when things were thriving. That's the neighborhood house on the left. But back then was the company store. All right. That's no, I'm sorry. Back here, it was the neighborhood house. It had been the company store until they built the new company store across the street, the brick building, the one that's there now where the corner deli is. It used after the Z Company closed, Morris Herzenberg bought it, and it became Herzenberg's for many years. North Country Pharmacy for their many years. We're looking up the hill. You can see how there's drainage ditches. This may be contemporary with the first picture that we looked at. Just out of focus here is where that track crossed right there to go behind. All right. But you look up the hill and you see B.D. Simmons coal chutes. Every one of these buildings, with the exception of the neighborhood house, is still there. We'll have a separate session on things like the neighborhood house and the Franklin Pond and other recreation that the borough provide. At some point, Jack Carroll's house, Mary Quinn's house. What you can't see are the gas pumps that are in like the sidewalk, the first Herzenbergs, stuff like that. And, going up the hill. And the telephone poles that were brand new, telegraph poles, telephone poles that were right in the middle because they were new. And the neighborhood house, of course. The canteens. That's Mo Copens right there when he was a kid. The canteen every Friday night, Gene, right? Because Krupa used to sell us tickets out of his class.
Yeah, I think the little kids had Friday and then.
And the bigger kids had Saturday. Yeah. 10 cents would get you a ticket to come into this. All right. Part of that money would be put towards a year-end celebration where they provided the sodas and everything like this. But they had those old soda machines where you slid it like this, brought it out. Every kid went to this. Every kid, even back when we were kids, which was a long time ago, but even back when we were kids. And you can see how they decorate like for Christmas and stuff. Now this is Matt DeMario. This is DeMario's son. We knew him as the old man DeMario. Matty DeMario. And they're dancing and look, all the boys on one, all the girls on the other. Happened like that. And of course, this was a more contemporary. Is Suzanne Banky in here? No. Suzanne, are you on the phone? That is Sue Banky right there. Right there. That is Jeff Davidowski right here. Hold on, bear with me. Jeff Davidowski. That's Al Grazovich. So they're playing, and look at the guys with the Hawaiian lace on. Now everybody's got white, which makes me think that this is like a class night or something like that. I don't know.
Phil, that's graduation.
Oh, graduation?
Yes, sir.
Who is this?
This is Karen Smallman, Karen
Oh,
Farber.
Karen, how are you? Karen
Oh,
Farber.
fine, Phil.
Are you in here?
I don't know. I don't believe I am because I don't remember going to that.
Right, that's like Sue Banky here.
Yes, I'm her friend on Facebook. Yep.
Yeah, and this looks familiar too. This looks like well, anyway.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was this canteens were big right through the time that we were kids. I don't know when they stopped. Remember when the open door coffee house came in the professional building downstairs?
Yeah. I remember.
Might have been somewhere around there.
Church. That was in church.
69, 70.
Yeah, 69, 70. Yeah, because we used to get tickets from Mike Krupa that ran everything.
Yeah.
Right in his
My cousin was
class.
One of the adults that sponsored.
Oh, is that right?
That's what I said, yeah. They had their-
Now this is our last picture. I want to thank everybody for their patience going through. So like I say, we're going to have future sessions that'll focus on other stuff. There's 1,300 slides we got. But I want to talk to you about this one. If there's anything that's more representative of how organized and vibrant that this town was, this is looking up the hill from the traffic light on Main Street. And you see everything there. I mean, this was Gondor. Well, this was the luncheonette. Gondor's you can't see right behind here, which was the first Herzenbergs here. Goldstein's 5.
Yeah.
9.
Yes.
Quinn's on the right, and going up the hill, and you got Webb's, and around the corner would be the theater, and you've got the coal chutes for B.D. Simmons. Now, everything you see in this picture is still there, with the exception of this nice lady here. But this little boy is with us today. I tried to get him here, and I could. That's Eddie Midland, 98 years old.
God bless.
Still marches with the fire department.
They still drive.
Still golfs, still drives, still square dances. He's as lucid as you'd ever want to see. So one of the things that we're going to ask to do here is to have a session where we bring him in, put him on a camera, put on a Zoom, and let you ask questions
from the old days. So we can get him on record, so we can, he's the sole lucid link back to these Halicon days. And I wanted to have him here like as the grand finale, but anyway,
Another time.
another time. So thank you, everybody,
Thank you.
for like coming. There'll be more.
Very much.
And I hope that we, picked up a couple things and
A
that
lot of.
you're ready for the next time. All right?
Thank you so
All right, you
much.
bet.
I know this is a lot of work.
Oh, sorry this took so long. Holy-
What's the Snyder House? I got here a little late.
Snyder House was a bar and a hotel. It was also synonymously called Snyder Hotel too. But